Hello, everyone, and welcome into today's Daily Bible Reading for Thursday, October the 27th. Today, we are reading together from Job chapter 22, which begins the third series or third cycle of speeches between Eliphaz, Bildad, Zophar, and our main character of Job. Once this series concludes, I believe at the end of at the end of chapter 32, then in 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, and so 33 through 37 will be the words of Elihu. And then the Lord begins speaking in chapter 38 and is going to close us out. But today we're looking at chapter 22, which is the third speech of Eliphaz. And he is, maybe I'm reading this wrong, but it looks to me like he's kind of the leader of it. He really is the one that comes in the strongest way against Job throughout the entirety of these discussions. And he certainly is going to come in pulling no punches within this particular chapter as he lays out some very strong allegations against Job. And we're going to see that here in Job chapter 22. Let me go ahead and get the text up on the screen for us. Reading together here in Job chapter 22 in verse number 1. Job 22, verse number 1. Then Eliphaz the Temanite replied, "Can a man be of any use to God? Can even a wise man be of use to him? Does it delight the Almighty if you are righteous? Does he profit if you perfect your behavior?" Of course, the answer is no. God does not need to go into Acts chapter 17, I believe it is, where Paul argues that God does not need the worship of mankind in order to be what he is. So no, God does not need or profit from these things, but he is glorified. And it does please the Lord if those who are created in his image do behave in such a way. So yes, these are things that are good. There's nothing wrong with this at all. So verse number 4, does he correct you and take you to court because of your piety? Again, the understanding here is they are questioning Job's piety. They don't believe in Job's righteousness or a quality or good quality of behavior because he's suffering. And they believe that because he is suffering, that is a clear evidence that he has done something wrong, which is the very point that Job has really challenged in yesterday's reading in chapter 21, where Job said, hey, I see one person dies having a lot of good things, one person dies having nothing. They're in the same boat. I see times whenever the wicked prosper, they have good resources, they have good material means, their families are all taken care of, they go to the grave without incident. So what gives? It seems as if your worldview, again, Job talking to his friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, it seems as if your worldview, it's not really holding up to the evidence that I am considering. So here is Eliphaz now. He's going to really go in on Job and say, listen, you're only suffering because you've done wrong. Again, does God correct you and take you to court because of your piety? Isn't, verse number 5, isn't your wickedness, notice this language is very, very harsh language, matter-of-fact language. Isn't your wickedness abundant? And aren't your iniquities endless? I don't know, are they? Because if I'm going back to the beginning of the chapter, or it's not even the beginning of the chapter, if I'm going back to the beginning of this book, Job is described in some pretty admirable ways. He's described in very positive terms. Again, if we were to go back here, and I know I'm breaking up the reading here, I apologize. I'll begin reading in verse number 4 and go on from there and not interrupt. But reading again in chapter 1, we are introduced to this man in the country of Uz named Job. He was a man of complete integrity who feared God and turned away from evil. whenever the Satan approaches the sons of God, whenever he approaches the council and the Lord questions him, he says right off the bat in chapter 1 of verse number 8, have you considered my servant Job? No one on earth is like him, a man of perfect integrity who fears God, turns away from evil. So let me ask you, Eliphaz, let's turn that back on him. Is Job's wickedness abundant, and are his iniquities endless? God and the inspired writer say no. He says and implies they are. So that should give us a little insight into the issue, where the issue truly lies within this reading. But let me back up verse number 4 and let's start reading again, and we'll finish out the chapter and come back and make a couple more comments. Job chapter 1, verse number 4, does he correct you? Does God correct you and take you to court because of your piety? Is your wickedness abundant, and aren't your iniquities countless? For you took collateral from your brothers without cause, stripping off their clothes and leaving them naked. You gave no water to the thirsty and withheld food from the famished, while the land belongs to a powerful man, and an influential man lived on it. You sent widows away empty-handed, and the strength of the fatherless was crushed. Therefore snares surround you, and sudden dread terrifies you. Or darkness you cannot see, and a flood of waters covers you. Isn't God as high as the heavens? And look at the highest stars, how lofty they are. Yet you say, what does God know? Can he judge through total darkness? Clouds veil him so that he cannot see as he walks on the circle of the sky. Will you continue on the ancient path that the wicked men have walked? They were snatched away before their time, and their foundations were washed away by a river. They were the ones who said to God, leave us alone. And what can the Almighty do to us? But it was he who filled their houses with good things. The counsel of the wicked is far from me. The righteous see this and rejoice. The innocent mock them, saying, surely our opponents are destroyed, and fire has consumed what they left behind. Come to terms with God and be at peace. In this way, good will come to you. Receive instruction from his mouth and place his sayings in your heart. If you return to the Almighty, you will be renewed. If you banish justice from your tents and consign your heart to, or your gold to the dust, the gold of Ophir to the stones in the wadis, the Almighty will be your gold and your finest silver. Then you will delight in the Almighty and lift up your face to God. You will pray to him and he will hear you, and you will fulfill your vows. When you make a decision, it will be carried out, and light will shine on your ways. When others are humiliated and you say, lift them up, God will save the humble. He will even rescue the guilty one, who will be rescued by the purity of your hands. And that is Job chapter 22. I'm mean, just plain and simple here within this text, going back to verse number 5. The reality is, it seems, based upon the evidence we have of the scripture, what is revealed to us, that these are simple, baseless accusations against Job. Eliphaz, in every sense of the word, it seems, is just grasping at straws to try to figure out some way in which he can indict Job. What Eliphaz is doing here, I believe, is Eliphaz is trying to conform the reality to his perception of how the world works. Instead of conforming his perception to the evidence that is before him, he is trying to twist reality and the evidence to fit his perception. And we'll look at something else. We see that verse 5 again. Isn't your wickedness abundant, your iniquities endless? You took collateral from brothers without cause, stripping off their clothes and leaving them naked. You gave no water to the thirsty, withheld good from the famished. You sent widows away empty-handed, and the strength of the fatherless was crushed. And all this was done as a man, as a powerful man, an influential man lived on it. That's Job. Job, I believe, is the powerful, influential man. So he has taken advantage of these things. He even charged that Job says, what does God know? Can he judge through total darkness? Clouds veil him so that he cannot see as he walks on the circle of the sky. He misrepresents many of Job's statements up until this point. These things are just not, they are not in any way how Job has put forth these things. He has said that he doesn't understand how this has happened, but he has never said that God is so far away that he cannot comprehend, that he cannot see. Job just said, I don't understand how this makes sense. I'm suffering in this way when I've been a righteous person. So again, what Eliphaz is doing here, I believe is something that we need to be very wary of. We need to be wary of twisting things in order to fit our understanding or our perception. Okay, we need to make sure that we are not twisting, let's say, for example, scripture. We don't need to twist scripture in order to fit our current understanding or our worldview or our perception of things. That's not the way it works. We don't need to falsely accuse other people of things in order to fit what we think is the reality. That's not how things are supposed to work. Those who are arrogant do such things. For example, there was just wrapped up yesterday, the verdict was delivered concerning Darrell Brooks, who was the Waukesha Parade massacrer, the man who drove his vehicle through a Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin last December. The man is an absolute sociopath. He is delusional. Why do I say that? Because throughout this entire process of the trial, number one, he represented himself, which was a terrible idea, and did nothing for him except make him known to be the fool that he is. But he would sit there and make statements that simply were not in line with reality. And it doesn't matter how much we want to claim a particular fact. If that fact does not line up with reality, it does not make reality changed. For here with Eliphaz and the other two men, Bildad and Zophar, it doesn't matter how many times they say that Job is guilty of something that has brought this upon himself. It doesn't matter how many of Job's statements they twist to try to make them say something that they're not. Those are just not the realities of the situation. And it is simply a sign of arrogance for us to think that we can do that. So my encouragement for us today is to just live in reality. Live in reality and perceive things as they ought to be. Don't try to twist objective realities in order to fit our feelings. And that's especially true whenever it comes to scripture. We allow scripture to say what scripture says, regardless of if that goes against some kind of tradition that we have had in the past, some belief that we've had in the past. Those things can be changed. Scripture cannot. It is our duty to conform to scripture, which we believe to be God's will given to us. Therefore, it is our job to conform to God's will. And in doing so, that will bring him honor. It will do us no good whatsoever to think that we could twist scripture or twist some sort of other fact or objective reality in order to conform it to our will. That doesn't actually change things. It just makes us look like fools. Eliphaz here in Job chapter 22 looks like a fool. And may God help us ourselves to not find ourselves in that same situation. Thank you so much for tuning into this reading on this Thursday. In case you haven't heard, I'll remind you that Billy Hoover's arrangements will be for Sunday. 1 p.m. will be the visitation with the funeral itself to follow at 3 p.m. at McGill Click Funeral Home, right up the road from the church house on Highway 72, across from the car wash and Goodwill. Right across the road from that on 72, you'll see McGill Click Funeral Home. That's where we'll be for Billy's arrangements on Sunday. Hope you'll be making your plans to join for that, and continue please to pray for Leslie and the family as well at this time, and for our whole church family, certainly, as Billy was a pillar within the Loudon Church, and he'll be greatly missed. Again, thanks for tuning in today. We'll be back at it again tomorrow. Take care. God bless.